This meeting will be conducted as a Zoom webinar to allow for public participation and comments. The Contra Costa Transportation Authority does not condone hate speech in any form. We continually strive to make life better for all members of our community and create an atmosphere where everyone feels a sense of safety and belonging. We ask that anyone who wishes to speak does so with civility, respect, and kindness for others. Citizens will have 3 minutes to speak. It is requested that public speakers state their names and organizations, but providing such information is voluntary. Citizens participating in person wishing to speak should submit a public speaker card to the clerk. Citizens participating by Zoom wishing to speak should use the raise hand feature or dial *9 if participating via phone, and the chair or staff will call upon them at the appropriate time. Written public comments received in accordance with the teleconferencing special notice on the meeting agenda will be provided to the members. If authors of the written correspondence would like to speak, they should raise their hand in Zoom or submit a public speaker card, and the chair will call upon them at the appropriate time. All written correspondence received after that and during the meeting will be entered into the record. Thank you for participating in a meeting of the Contra Costa Transportation Authority.
All right, thank you. Emily, you can conduct roll call.
Member Birdwell. Member Cooney. Member Ridgway for Nestor Bush.
Here.
Member Noya.
Here.
Member Perry.
Here.
Member Queen. Member Smith. Member Thompson.
Yeah.
Member Toth.
Here.
And Chair Clark.
Here, thank you.
We have a quorum with members Cooney, Dongelli, Ibarra, Reese Brown absent.
Okay. We don't have any new introductions to be done, but I wasn't sure if we wanted to introduce ourselves since this is the first time we're in person in 3+ years. Yeah?
Yeah.
Great, let's do that. So that we can really put the face to the name. We'll start over here to the right.
All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Debbie Toth with Choice in Aging, and I've been on the Paratransit Coordinating Council for longer than some of you have been alive. And we're a provider representative. And I don't know what's going on here, but hi. Been photographed before as a PCC. That's new. I'll pass it on to you. Can you be that exciting?
I'll try. Hi, I'm Sarah Birdwell. I'm with Independent Living Resources, and I joined the committee last year. I am working with County Connection, so thought it would be a good idea to be on this board and help out with my position and role.
Rob Thompson, I'm the general manager with Westcott. I've been probably on the committee officially for about a year and a half, but I've been certainly coming to PCC meetings for a number of years.
I'm Pebble Smith from Antioch on the Tri-Delta representative from Antioch, and I've been on the PCC 4.5 years now.
Kim Ridgway, Accessible Services, AC Transit, and since 2009. Y'all do the math.
Good afternoon. My name is Rosa Noya. I'm the manager of accessible services at County Connection. And this is my first PCC meeting in person. Been doing about 2 years virtually. Thank you.
I'm Donald Queen. I'm from East Bay Paratransit, also as a member. And this is my first meeting in person.
I'm Deanna Perry, Manager of Accessible Services at Tri-Delta Transit, and PCC, I think I've been on about 7 years.
My name is Rashida Kamara, and I'm the Program Manager for Accessibility and Equity here at Contra Costa Transportation Authority. I'll pass it to you.
Ian Smith, CCTA Director of Mobility Programs, and this is my first in-person PCC meeting. And I think we probably would like to introduce our admin assistant as well as people in the audience.
I'm Emily Owen, admin assistant. This is also my first PCC meeting in person. Excited to see you all in person.
There's my surprise.
Welcome. Thank you so much. I'm Chair Jean Clark. I work for the City of San Pablo Transportation, Senior and Disabled Transportation. This is my first PCC meeting in person, and I've been with the PCC for 3 years. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Next after that is, next on the agenda is public comment. And Emily, have we received any written public comments?
We have not received any written public comments.
Okay. Is there anyone who wishes to speak during public comment on an item that is not part of the agenda? If so, let us know virtually and we will call upon you. Do we have speaker cards or anything okay, and there's no speaker cards.
We have not received any speaker cards.
Thank you. So that concludes our public comment item. Next item on the agenda is the consent calendar, which includes the summary of actions from September 18th of 2023. Are there any changes or comments from anyone on the committee? Have we received any written public comments?
We have not received any public comments.
Okay. Is there anybody virtually that has a comment on our
There are no virtual
consent calendar?
No virtual public comments.
Okay. So do I have a motion and a second to pass our consent calendar?
It's Kim Ridgway, and I move to pass the consent calendar.
I have a first by member Ridgway. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second by Perry. Thank you so much. Emily, can you conduct a roll call vote?
Member Birdwell,
Yes.
member Ridgway,
Yes.
member Noya,
Yes.
member Perry,
Yes.
member Queen.
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
member Thompson,
Yes.
member Toth,
Yes.
and Chair Clark.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with members Birdwell, Cooney, Dodgelli, Ibarra, and Reese Brown absent.
Thank you. We have 4 regular agenda items, 2 of which are the first 2 are action items. The first is an action item regarding the City of Richmond's paratransit financial and service delivery that will be presented by Rashida Kamara.
Thank you, Chair Clark. So this item is regarding the audit of the City of Richmond City Paratransit Financial and Service Delivery. As many of you know, the Measure J Program 15, which is a countywide transportation services for seniors and persons with disabilities, requires that fund recipients, which are most of us here, actually submit a claim for the allotted allocated funding, and that the Paratransit Coordinating Council actually approves that claim using a Paratransit Coordinating Subcommittee Council. Over the years, the City of Richmond has either not submitted in a timely manner or inaccurate claims documenting their paratransit services. As a result, the subcommittee, which was convened last year, recommended that an audit, they actually denied the claim and recommended that an audit be performed in reference to their financial and paratransit service delivery. Staff here actually reached out to a couple of auditing firms regarding this process. And with the PCC's approval, we would like to, staff seeks recommendation to have the authority board approve the scope of work, approve the scope of work with AMG, which is Advanced Mobility Group, to perform the audit and reallocate Measure J funds that were previously allocated to the City of Richmond in the amount not to exceed $32,000 in order to perform the audit of the paratransit financial and service delivery. So instead of using all the funds given to the City of Richmond, we want to use their funds that would have been paid to them to actually perform the audit. The idea is that the audit will take, and the scope of services is attached. The idea is that the audit will take no more than 90 days. Within that audit, we will receive a recommendation, we will receive findings, and they'll have some time to actually bring those findings into accordance before the findings are then brought back to the PCC to approve the reallocation of their funds to run services. And with that, I will take questions before there is an action.
Does anybody have any questions?
No, if not unless my presentation was not clear.
Hi,
Feel free.
PCC member Smith. What services is Richmond providing now?
Richmond is providing 2 services for their seniors and persons with disabilities. They're providing a paratransit service and they're providing a Lyft program. And they have a call center that accepts these calls. And just to let you know, I actually went to Richmond Paratransit. I was not only on the PCC itself, I was also on the PCC committee as part of this process, but I've also met with the City of Richmond's team regarding the audit and the expectations. And I actually visited Richmond Paratransit myself. And so they do have a call center, they do have vehicles, and they also have a Lyft program. The purpose of this audit, based on the documentation that they have given over the years, the PCC committee was not confident on the level of services. There were questions about the finances and how they were spent. There were questions on the degree of performance, the quality of performance, the outreach that's being performed. So as a result, instead of just allocating the funds, they wanted to do a deeper dive with the auditing company to determine whether or not it's up to par. I hope that answers your question.
Yes or no? What effect is there a shortfall to Richmond providing services now financially to the community? In other words, this audit and the withholding of, I'm assuming there was funds withheld from Richmond. What effect does that have on the services that Richmond is capable of providing today?
Richmond, that's a good question. I'll answer and then maybe the chair can also answer it. Anybody who was part of the subcommittee. There are at least 3 years of funds that are being affected by the claim. But with these 3 years of funds, Richmond has been rolling out some sort of service. One of the years, which I believe is 2021, because of the shortfall in the actual claims form that was submitted to us, only a portion, about 45% of the funds were given to them, with the understanding that they would give us back complete the form so that they could have the rest of the funds. It was not completed, but they continued to run service. The following year, which was 21-22, they did not submit a form at all, but they were running services. These were questions that were asked during the PCC subcommittee. How are you running services when on one year you only received half the money and on one year you did not submit a claim at all? The concern of the PCC subcommittee and the PCC itself was that, well, you're running some type of service and you're confident enough in the service that you're running that you didn't even submit a claim to receive the monies. Upon further investigation and speaking to not just the paratransit accessibilities person themselves, we spoke to members of the city, and they are using reserve general funds for where they feel Measure J funds has not filled the gap. But in order to sign off on the Measure J funds, the forms that were submitted, there were definitely some inconsistencies in those funds, in the numbers that they claimed to be submitting. And so as a result, the PCC, on recommendation of the subcommittee, was to audit to determine how their general funds actually, how they're able to use general funds, and that when they do receive Measure J funds, how they actually use Measure J funds. And I'll be more than happy to invite those who participated as the subcommittees to pass on this recommendation to add to my responses.
This is Debbie Toth. I was part of that subcommittee, and I have been a number of years since I've been on that subcommittee, but the same issues were happening 10 years ago when I was on that subcommittee, and nothing has been done to correct it. I want to say I deeply appreciate your question, because I always am concerned that we don't stop service in order to correct a problem, but there's no evidence of service delivery. I mean, it's really, there's an issue there, and this is taxpayer dollar that we're overseeing and ensuring that the services are happening. And I think this is our path forward to ensuring that there are services being delivered, and to the extent with the tax dollars that they're getting, that meets what the need is. So for example, just, I'm throwing this out, this is not the exact number, but where County Connection provide one ride and it cost them $50, Richmond would show that they provided a ride and it cost them $1,000. Like, it was that kind of glaring discrepancy in the numbers. And that's not the exact numbers. I want to be very clear about that, but it was that kind of shocking gap that clearly there's something missing in the reporting. And I think the goal of this is to really get at what services are being delivered, how are we tracking them, how are we ensuring that we're filling the gaps, and how are we being responsible with the taxpayer dollars? I mean, I don't know if you guys have anything more to add to that.
Let me just ask this one last thing on this issue. Because since I've been on the PCC, this has been an issue. And we've discussed this 2 or 3 times. When this audit is completed, the findings of the audit will that be a fix for what's happening at Richmond in their reporting and their delivery of services? Because my only concern is that the community, the seniors, the disabled have ongoing services without lapse. And it seems to me that with this ongoing problem that Richmond has had, the community is lacking in services. It's difficult for me to see how we are getting the full scope of the services that the PCC should be offering to the community.
Thank you. I think that's another good question. So what the audit is going to do is answer questions both for the PCC and for Richmond that the claims process itself is just not enough. It was just not the forum enough to determine how systemic or how deep the problem actually runs. So the audit is also going to provide recommendations. So Richmond has to fix Richmond. We need to give Richmond an opportunity to, through the audit process, to fix Richmond and a time frame for them to be able to do it. The audit basically opens up the book because the goal is to continue to provide services, but not just any kind of service that our constituents can actually bank on. So that's what the audit is going to do. Once the recommendations on the recommendations of what is actually lacking is provided to them, then they're going to be given a time frame in which to fix it. So the audit is also twofold. There's going to be a 6-month period under which, after recommendations are given, they're given an opportunity to fix it. 6 months into it, which is only fair, you go back in and you say, oh, out of 17 recommendations that we made, it looks as if you've made about 10 of them. This looks good. 6 months in, there's another Measure J claim coming up. We look back and we see, have you checked off 17 out of 17? Maybe you've checked off 15 out of 17. I'm just using this as an example, not very specific, but using it as an example. And then we all start to feel confident. We should be able to see both in the numbers and from the users of the service that services have actually improved. So we want to be fair. We want to be able to say, Richmond, you're doing this well, but you're lacking in this area. And if you're lacking in this area, then here's an opportunity for you to fix that area and give us you get an opportunity to actually correct the numbers so that these taxpayer dollars, we understand the PCC that's responsible for signing off on them and giving them to you actually understand that services, not just, minimal services, but you're giving them actual quality service. That's what we all want. We want that from all the agencies. And this is what this audit is going to do for them.
Hi, Kim Ridgway. One question about thank you for providing that scope of work in the packet. And I understand that there are deliverables. There's going to be bi-weekly deliverables, and then there's a draft report and final report. So I'm just assuming that all the bi-weekly reports go to you to review, but do I understand it correctly that the final report will come to this body and then the final report after their 6 months of fixes, so to speak, will come back to us as well? Okay.
Sorry about that. That's correct. The PCC is going to be involved every step of the way, not necessarily in the details, but the final report, so you know exactly what, because you're about to prove the audit in $32,000. The final report will be brought to the PCC. Just to know what you're going to be. The final report is going to be brought to the PCC, and then of course midway, I think it's important that you see whether or not improvements are being made. Because it's an engagement process. Nobody wants to withhold money. We want Richmond to do a good job. They've been entrusted to do a good job. So this is a partnership with the city of Richmond. And I must say that throughout this process, it has not been easy. Nobody wants their funds to be held up. But I have to say that the members of the city of Richmond, LaShonda White to be specific, they've been very engaged. John Joy has been very engaged. John Nemeth has been very engaged. So we have been emailing and talking and meeting weekly. And like I said, I have personally been involved, including going over line item by line item, definition of the claim forms and what these mean and why they're glaring numbers and what these numbers actually mean. So it has been a very interactive process in order to get this done. So yes, the PCC will definitely be involved, including the city of Richmond. I think that it's a collaborative process with them, and it's going to show our partnership with the PCC and the city of Richmond. And I think that it's important that the members, the residents of the city of Richmond understand that this process happened with their taxpayer dollars, so that they know that that money is being held accountable so that they can have the services that they deserve to have.
Any other comments from board members? I just wanted to also say thank you. I've been privy to the emails that have gone back and forth. So I want to back, I want to back that up, that I'm just so happy to see the work that CCTA staff are putting in, and also the work that City of Richmond staff are putting in to do that. And I just wanted to echo that. I wanted to say thank you, and it's definitely a step in the right direction, a step in a positive direction. So I'm excited. I'm excited for what's going to come out of it. So thank you. Okay. Does anybody from the public, would they like to speak on this? Either virtually or in person?
We have not received any public comments, and I don't see any hand raised from the public.
So then do I have a motion to approve the amount not to exceed $32,000 to conduct the audit of the City of Richmond's paratransit services?
Madam Chair, I approve, wait, I don't approve it. I move that we approve the amount not to exceed the $32,000.
Approved by Board Member Smith. Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, thank you so much. We have a first and a second. Emily, can you please conduct the roll call?
Member Birdwell,
Yes.
Member Ridgway,
Approved.
Member Noya,
Yes.
Member Perry,
Yes.
Member Queen,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Toth,
Yes.
and Chair Clark.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with members Cooney, Dargelli, Barra, and Reese Brown absent.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is the election of a vice chair with a term effective immediately through the fiscal year 2025 through 2026. The PCC bylaws state that nominations of officers shall be limited to those who have attended more than half of PCC meetings in the previous 2 years. Do we have any nominations? I see Board Member Toth is. Do we have any nominations? Do we have any self-nominations?
I'll self-nominate myself for vice chair.
Unfortunately, I don't know if that meets our attendance records.
So according to our bylaws, Rose has served as an alternate. So because she served as, even though she attended all the meetings, she served as an alternate and did not know what that, that's my fault because I attended all the meetings. So
She was your
served as-
alternate. is
She
what
was
you're
my,
saying,
yeah,
right.
she was my alternate. So even though she attended all the meetings, I don't think she qualifies for a nomination as the vice chair.
Which makes us sad.
I will nominate myself.
Excellent. We will accept that nomination of Member Smith.
Sorry, Chair Clark, does there need to be a second to a nomination in this process? In case there needs to be,
Okay, there is
I'm-
a first and a second, but maybe we'll do those individually then.
Understood.
Okay, so we'll do that individually. So the first nomination for vice chair is member Smith. Do I have a first?
I'd like to be the first.
Okay, member Ridgway, do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Member Member Noya. So we do actually have an official nomination for vice chair, first and seconded. Do we have any other nominations? Okay. Emily, do we have any written public comment on that?
We have not received any written public comments.
Okay. Anybody from the public, would you like to speak? Raise your hand. Board Member Toth, so that you know we had a nomination for vice chair. It wasn't you. It was Member Smith. All right. So we had the first and the second. Emily, can you please conduct a roll call?
Member Birdwell,
Yes.
Member Ridgway,
Yes.
Member Noya,
Yes.
Member Perry,
Yes.
Member Queen,
Yes.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Member Thompson,
Yes.
Member Toth,
An enthusiastic yes.
Chair Clark.
Yes.
The motion passes unanimously with members Cooney, Jelly, Barra, and Reese Brown absent.
Congratulations, yes. The next item is an informational update on the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan that will be presented by John Cunningham.
All right, let me get sorted here. Thank you, Chair Clark. Hello, members of the PCC. My name is John Cunningham. I'm a transportation planner with Contra Costa County. I'm going to walk you through an update on the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. So that plan, it is a collaborative effort in between the Transportation Authority and the county. Which is why you have me here today. We trade off giving presentations. Sometimes CCTA staff does it. Sometimes I do it. Another reason I'm providing the presentation is we're covering the Measure X funding that is being used for implementation. That funding is spent at the discretion of the Board of Supervisors, who I happen to work for. So I'm going to jump into it here. A little bit of background, the study was initiated in 2019 and it really started to pick up steam right as COVID hit. So we pivoted like everybody else did and we plugged along with the study with some outreach modifications, obviously. And we finished, as you can see on the slide, in the spring of 2021. Now we are in deep, our third year of implementation, which is critical if you're aware of the history on this issue. This county had done similar studies on this 3 times in the past 30 years, and none of those studies ever got to implementation. So this is a huge step, and it's really a credit to CCTA for getting the improvements on the ground. Moving on, some more general updates on Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. We got really lucky. It wasn't planned this way, but the Measure X sales tax was approved just as we were moving to implementation for the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. Measure X, it's a sales tax and it's used as a summary. It's used for basically to help lift up disadvantaged communities. And so there's more details to it, but you know, for the purposes of this presentation, that's what the sales tax was passed for. And so this fits right in, this being Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan really fits right into the wheelhouse of the Measure X funding. And so I'm going to go over some of the activities that are being funded by Measure X, but that are also in the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. And we really tried to have a balance between getting actual real service on the ground, real benefits to the folks who use this type of service, but also we wanted to provide sort of administrative and governance improvements, systemic improvements, so that we don't have the lag in improvements that we saw over the previous 30 years. And so it's a balancing act, and I think we like to think that we're doing a pretty good job, but we're happy to hear input on that. So on that note, the systemic improvement piece that we're working on is developing a coordinating entity. That is an organization or that is going to oversee this service area and ensure that we continue to see progress, excuse me, and you know, to bring more benefits to this population. And then the programs that we're rolling out, you can see on the screen here, means-based fare program, San Pablo medical trips, and travel training. And we'll get into a little bit more detail on that here in a bit. A little bit more detail on the Measure X funds that have been approved. The initial tranche of funds was for $1.4 million. We are now in the second year of funding, and it's there's a cost escalator, so it's a 1.4 million in change. There were some unspent monies that were rolled over to the current year, and we anticipate that the more programs will be implemented and more funding will be spent, because now we're really staffed up. When the funding was approved, we really didn't have staff available to develop the programs to spend the funding. We now have, excuse me, we have Ying Smith and Rashida Kumar on board, and they are really sort of steering the accessible transportation ship. And you will see programs coming out faster now, and those funds being brought to benefit the community more quickly. And if anybody has any questions, feel free to jump in and stop me. Some more, excuse me, more details on the Measure X funding. There's some details on the agreement that we have. Don't necessarily need to get into that detail. There's a memorandum of understanding between the county and the Transportation Authority. And you can see all the various tasks that have been funded with this. And just in summary, we help support the Office of Access and Equity, which is what Rashida is working under. The means-based fare program, which is now, I was just learned, has been renamed to the Low Income Fare is Easy program, the LIFE program. Credit to Rob Thompson and his team is what I understand. Oh, well, it's your team. I think that's a great name. The LIFE program, it rolls off the tongue quite a bit easier, and it's easier to remember than means-based fare or low-income fare subsidy. So kudos to Westcat.
Could you, one more time, low income fare?
Is easy. LIFE. Equity? Equity? Oh, I got that wrong. Equity. Thank you. And then some more details is we assisted with the development of the expansion of the one-seat ride program. There's been a substantial amount of consultant assistance helping out with that. And then the coordinated entity development that I mentioned earlier, the systemic change. And then coming up soon will be a one-call, one-click system. As everybody here is aware, we have different services available depending on where you live in the county, what type of services you're eligible for, and so there's different numbers and different websites to go to. This is going to unify the websites and the phone number. And, that will be a process. And then there are some more details on what is going to be upcoming here soon. Again, we have Rashida and Ying on board, and so you'll see these programs rolling out in the coming months and years. Improve connectivity between paratransit programs. And these are all approved in the Accessible Transportation Strategic Plan. They have to be funded and fleshed out. So, you know, there's definitely work to be done. I want to expand the volunteer driver program. Not going to read them all. One call, one click, which is what I mentioned earlier. Travel training program. I think I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. Administer potentially uniform ADA paratransit eligibility. The public transit operators are the lead on that, and so we're really just going to be the conveners of that dialogue. And then there at the bottom, you see the means-based fare program, now called the LIFE program. These are some of the accomplishments that we achieved last year. There was work, again, on a coordinated entity. There's, it's very simple to say to create a new organization, but the devil really is in the details. And so there's been a lot of discussions with involved agencies on this. We want to provide a cost-effective system. We do not want to provide services that are already being provided, and we don't want to provide services that are best provided by an existing provider. And so there's, it's an iterative process where we're figuring out what the best structure is that suits all the involved players. And there are a lot of involved players. And so we're working on that. And I think this year, hopefully we're going to get that across the finish line in 2024. It's January, so I can say that. I'm getting some side eye from Rashida though, so I'll move on to the next item. Included in defining the coordinated entity, you see the list there. What are the functions that it's going to provide? And again, we've gone through a number of workshops, discussions, and meetings to come up with this list. And then there at the bottom, you see, of course, Rashida Kamara was recently hired to lead this up. And these are the three specific programs, the on-the-ground benefits of the ATS plan and the Measure X funding, means-based fare, now LIFE, an emerging San Pablo medical trip pilot program. I have a subsequent slide that'll go into a bit more detail on that. And then we're hoping to unify the travel training programs around the county for some more efficiency. And here's the pilot program, some details on the pilot program, the means-based fare, low income fares equity program. I need to practice that, get that right. It was initiated with the help of Tri-Delta Transit. Deanna Perry actually played a big role in this. Thanks to Tri-Delta, we got it up and running. The Contra Costa Crisis Center had a role early on, and we've since pivoted away with Tri-Delta Transit taking over all the administration of that program. You see it was extended for 18 months, the program. Program has been, I guess, popular with the folks that have used it. And then right now we're working on expansion to other areas. And eventually this will be throughout the county, this program. And here's some detail on the San Pablo medical trip program that I've mentioned a few times. Again, we're still working on that right now. And it's it'll be shuttle rides between the senior center and the Martinez Medical Center. I believe I don't think it's limited to just that, but those are the common destinations, or that is strictly that's the A to B. Okay, that is the origin and destination in this program. As you can see, I'm not completely up to speed on this program, but thank you, Chair Clark, for cluing me in. And then upcoming, again, I mentioned it earlier, travel training program. We have programs in different parts of the county, and we're hoping to, make it a consistent program countywide. And so that'll be coming in the next few months and years. And that concludes my presentation. I'm going to be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you so much, John. And yes, any questions or comments? Ooh, real
Not
hand,
to be
chair
confused
toad.
with my virtual hand.
Board toad.
Don't even know how to use these anymore. Thank you for the presentation. I think we're going to be hearing more about the medical trips in the next agenda item, so not to worry. I'm curious about the travel training and how that's being operationalized amongst, or is it being coordinated so that whatever travel training is happening in West County, it's the same that's happening in East County, that's the same that's happening in Central County, just thinking toward the point where we have a single point of entry, one eligibility format, blah, 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 blah. Are we doing that too with travel training?
And thank you for the question. I can speak to that. So the countywide travel training program is still being built, but that is the idea. As of right now, the conversations are happening with West Cat and West County, with East County, which is Tri-Delta's office, and also with County Connection. County Connection and West County currently have a travel training program, and County Connection actually uses a third party that is very familiar with travel training program. In fact, there's their travel trainer sitting right there. And so the goal is to have them as satellite sites to feeding into one travel training program with County Connection. And the purpose of that was twofold. One was to standardize as much as possible because they're going to be one unit, even though they're satellite sites. But at the same time, customize some of what is needed that is very specific to the service area. Like for instance, if you have a satellite site that services WICTAC service area, there are certain aspects of transportation in WICTAC service area or West County that is very specific. And we want to be able to leverage the travel training program that they currently have, which is pretty good, so that the passengers or those who make good use of it it doesn't feel so different to them. So the idea was to standardize as much as possible, and yes, customize it so that it's person-centered as much as possible. So the idea is to have one travel training program that is standardized, and yet satellite sites that also work. So all the satellite sites will be working, and it's so funny that the details of this are coming up, but it's still in the process of working out the details.
Any other questions or comments?
I just am incredibly excited, John, that you and I both got to get white together before we actually got, I'm a little more white than you are, but I guess I should say gray or silver or platinum in this process. But I think that I don't actually know that there was a point in the last 22 years where I believed this was going to happen. And it's happening. And it's impressive to be here in this moment. It's impressive that there are actually 2 humans that are employed at the Transportation Authority whose work includes doing better for people with disabilities and our older adults so that they can get around and not have to be prematurely institutionalized. And I just thank you for your commitment to the work. That's it.
Thank you, member. Oh, does this work? Am I still plugged in? Thank you, member Toth. Yes, it's been a long road. Been working on this for over 20 years. And so, yeah, it's rewarding to see. And I thank CCTA for their leadership on this. And frankly, I think as the years go on and we have the aging of the population, the baby boomers getting older, I think there's going to be a lot of eyes on CCTA for being proactive on this as other counties and the state faces an aging population. And so we've now turned our eyes to the state itself to get them on board to fulfill their obligations. So stay tuned for progress on that front. Thank you, everyone.
No, I was just going to add, thank you very much for those comments. I don't think we couldn't have done this without the expertise, the willingness and the collaboration of all the transportation agencies out there, the ability to kind of all of us get together. I think that COVID provided an opportunity in which everybody's thinking has changed. And so being able to fill those gaps in services and everybody just willing to chip in. Ying and I are not physically running services. Us collaborating and coordinating are with the individuals that are already running services. And so the county providing funding, you have the program managers, you have the boots on the ground, we have some contractors out here. So this is really truly a collaborative effort, and there's been no time like the present for all of us to kind of get our minds right and to strike while the iron is hot in order to make this happen.
Thank you. Thank you so much. If anyone from the public would like to speak, please do so. Anyone virtually or anyone from the public in the crowd? Hey, it's a crowd. There's people. It's great.
We have not received any public comments and I don't see any hands raised.
Thank you, Emily. Okay, the next item is an informational update on the San Pablo Medical Trip Pilot Program that will be presented by myself. There, it's on. Okay. Thanks again to Nelson Nygaard for putting this together. And working with CCTA. This has been really an incredibly collaborative process. So I really appreciate that. I'll click. Okay. The proposed pilot, as you can see, meets several ATSP strategies. That was really important when we started this. Improving connectivity between paratransit programs, eliminating transfer trips, and then also same-day trips and service beyond ADA service areas. So that was really, that's the kind of stuff that that's the formal. The in-between was all the requests that we were getting. So as we know, and we've talked about here at the PCC, medical services have been centralized to certain areas. For example, if you're Kaiser and you need a hearing aid, you now go to Oakland, regardless of where you are. So we had a lot of our patrons coming to us and they needed services at the medical center in Martinez. And that was, we've done a lot of different things. I think it'll go on here, but that was a 3 transfer 2-hour trip one way. So that was one of the things that we decided, as John had mentioned, to focus Measure X funds on. There we go. Paratransit riders in West Contra Costa can't travel to medical centers without a transfer. We've had a lot of discussions about that. It came out in travel training. That was one of the things that was going to happen in travel training. So they tried it even before offering it to the public and just scratched it. It was too much, even with the Hercules Transit Center again, and also things for the medical center. The transit bus pulls up on the other side of the street outside of the medical center. So you still have to cross a busy street and you still have to go all the way up the hill to get services, like to get to your appointment. So those are the kinds of things that we were hearing. Even though there was transportation there, it was really not efficient or user-friendly in any way, shape, or form. So we went through a lot of different, we researched a lot of different things. We thought, okay, go grandparent, Lyft or Uber, but that's a limit. I believe it's like $14. I can't remember what the reimbursement is, but it's a limit. You still have to pay more if you're going to use Lyft or Uber, depending on where you were coming from. And we also know that has limitations as well. You can't be in a wheelchair. They don't have accessibility for that. So that was an issue. We're going through how many days a week, where could we go? We came up with Martinez. I was just talking about the Oakland Kaiser for hearing aids. So we looked into a lot of different things. We looked into doing travel training through the Hercules Transit Center. And we talked about the length of the pilot. What we came up with was, we thought, at least for San Pablo, we got a lot of requests from people in the area to go to the Martinez Medical Center. So we decided to focus on that. And we decided that 3 days a week, 3 round trips a day. And that's what we were going to focus on. We went back and forth between 12 and 18 months, but decided that 18 months was going to give us better data. if we ran it longer, because it was, as you know, you can offer a service, but you still have to get that information out there. And you have to build that trust and you have to have people to come to use it. So we thought 18 months was a better time to gather it. So as I said here, same slide, very well. So it will be from the San Pablo Senior Center to the Martinez Medical Center, 3 round trips per day. We chose Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Mondays and Fridays with traffic. So that was the best. We're going to do any one in 94806 zip code. So that is a bigger area than San Pablo Transit does. So that will include parts of Richmond, which we thought was really important. And we're using the same things that we use. The same qualifications that we use for San Pablo Transit, for our paratransit, which is 50 or older or anybody 18 plus with a disability. $5 regular fare one way and $2 means-based fare or life fare, which is pretty great. And actually, I believe we went to 1. We actually looked at it, and when we did the analyzation, we are now going with a $1 fee. So it's $10, but if you qualify, it's $2 round trip, which is pretty great. Will be an 18-month pilot. I do want to take the opportunity now to say the city of San Pablo, we had a very talented employee move on to another great job offer, and we've had 2 full-time employees that have taken extended leave. So as much as we wanted to start this in February, we are moving forward. We are putting out that job to get that additional driver. So we will have a driver dedicated to that. It's looking like we'll be starting closer to March than February. But we're still moving forward. And that's the presentation. Does anybody have any questions?
Want to comment? Can I comment?
Questions or comments?
I think this is fantastic. I bring this up every time because I want to make sure that we don't ever use transit dollars for things that should be paid for by other sources. So just making sure that we have looped in Medi-Cal for Medi-Cal riders so that we get reimbursed for those trips through the source that is identified to pay that. That's 1. 2 is, I love this. I love how you actually got human beings together and tested things so that you had a way to explain, because we can map things out on Google Earth or whatever, but to actually walk it and understand that there's a slope and that you can't get a wheelchair into a space and all of those things that able-bodied people don't think about and consider when they plan, it is really important for us to know and think and talk about and plan for. So I just start to finish love your presentation and the thought that went into this program, and I'm really looking forward to what it yields.
Thank you. And we did take in your comment asking if on the application we've changed it, that if they do have Medicare, so that we could at least look into that, into the options. We don't have a process where we might get reimbursed for that, but we at least are collecting the information. Okay, I will make note of that. Thank you. We have a question.
Thank you. In terms of the allocated cost, does that include the means-based fare portion of it as well? Like this 85,000 K? So, yeah.
I don't know if 100%.
So you have your operational cost, right? You're gonna hire the driver, but you also have the means-based fare situation for low income. Does that include, is that included, the money for this discounted rate? Is that included in the 85,000 that's being awarded through this grant?
Is it 85? Maybe the number. Yes, it involves all of that. So.
And it is being funded by Measure X money. So when the
Yes.
research was done, there was an anticipation that there'll be a subset of individuals that may not qualify or be low income and may not be able to pay the $5. And so when the cost model was put together, they did take into consideration that there would be some individuals who would pay less. Regarding the reimbursement, it is less the fare.
Of course. Any other comments? Do we have any comments or questions from the public?
We have not received any written public comments, and I don't see any hand raised.
All right, thank you so much. The next item on the agenda is reports. We have the Service Review Advisory Committee. Does anyone who attended the most recent Service Review Advisory Committee meeting have anything or have anything to report? A new name.
Paratransit, back.
Yeah, may I, Don? This is Kim Ridgway, may I? It's the East Bay Paratransit Access Committee. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, we had a fairly well attended meeting. We're still looking for members. It's pretty well.
Anything else?
No.
Okay, looking for members. I think we understand that. Okay. So the next report is for the Senior Mobility Action Council. Does anyone who attended the most recent SMAC committee meeting want to provide a report? I unfortunately was not able to make it. Actually, I tried to get in, but I couldn't get in. I had an old link, so. Anybody else?
I attended, but I'm also staff, so I'm not sure whether I should give a report on the SMAC. But I was there for the first half of the SMAC. I had to leave early. They did have a presentation by VIA. VIA is the new software that's going to be used. It has already been acquired by the city of Richmond, and it's going to be used. So coincidentally enough, when I visited the Richmond Paratransit, they are now trying to work with their IT department to phase out Route Match, which is a software that they're using in order to bring in VIA. So some of the antiquated means in which they communicate with drivers, they're going to be using tablets instead of paper manifest. There are just a lot of changes that are happening as a result of them transitioning from Route Match to VIA. So even though it was not necessarily a Richmond presentation, VIA gave the presentation. They talked about the partners that they have in California, in the Bay Area, and also a little bit about some of the changes and the updates that they're bringing to the city of Richmond.
Thank you.
I did not attend the meeting, but I did get the packet, and I think that it may be important to just sort of frame what SMAC is and what they're doing right now, because it's different than historically what they've been doing. And I was just calling up those meeting minutes, and please help me if I turn on Pandora instead of looking at the right thing. Sorry about that. I was waiting for Rump Shaker to come on because that's what's loaded. That would have been an exciting thing to do in a PCC meeting. All right, so the SMAC is the transportation work group of the Advisory Council on Aging. The Advisory Council on Aging is a 40-member body appointed by the Board of Supervisors in Contra Costa to advise on issues pertaining to older adults. There are 19 seats that are appointed for towns and cities, and the rest of the membership are at large. And the Advisory Council on Aging is in existence because of the Older Americans Act funding that we receive as a county. And there are mandates in receiving that funding that we have to do a plan. And so this body is around planning, and I will be interested to tell you, you may not be interested to hear, I'm rephrasing myself, that they will advocate and coordinate the implementation of the master plan for aging local playbook for Contra Costa. and will advocate to ensure that resources that are necessary are made available. And every aspect of the master plan for aging is about people being able to live in their setting of choice with the support they need to do so. And transportation is a huge piece of that. And I want to clarify that the master plan for aging is not a well-named plan because it's really aging and disability. So the plan is a statewide plan. It was developed through the California Health and Human Services. There was a stakeholder advisory committee that included the Directors of Disability Rights California, the California Foundation for Independent Living, as well as a bunch of aging advocates. So there's this sense of both of that in there. And the first iteration of the master plan for aging that came out in 2021 discarded the whole chunk of work that was done on accessible transportation. And when called out on that, they went back and said, okay, just kidding. Let's add all the stuff that you presented the first go around. And so now the master plan for aging in our state actually includes accessible transportation that is person-centered, which is exactly what we're doing on this strategic plan. So our goals are very aligned. They also are looking for members to join SMAC. So you don't have to be a member of the Advisory Council on Aging to be a member of the Senior Mobility Action Council, so you can just join. That's good enough. Thank you.
Thank you. Anything else on that?
Chair, we do have a virtual public comment.
Okay, great.
Jim Donnelly, the Advisory Council on Aging.
And first, I would like to thank Debbie for so eloquently discussing SMAC, or Senior Mobility Action Council. My name is, as I said, Jim Donnelly. I'm the Vice President of the Advisory Council on Aging. I'm also the current chair of the Senior Mobility Action Council. So I can finish just filling in from what Rashida and Debbie said. Besides having a presentation and all of us learning a lot more about all the myriad of things and services that VIA offers, we also reviewed a survey we did of all the accessible transportation providers in the county that we did last year. And we're working on a questionnaire and survey of all of our main providers about the impacts of the pandemic on COVID, on what it's done to the business, both short-term and more long-term, so that we've got some lessons learned put together for when this happens again. So any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Thank you for that. Anyone? All right. Item number 7, we'll move on. Is there any correspondence and communications? Okay. Now we're moving on. Item 8, future agenda items. If there are any topics that members would like to have agendized for future meetings, please raise your hand. Speak now. Member Toth.
So I just want to have the Richmond updates regularly standing on our agenda until we're at a place where that process is completed. I also would love to have standing accessible transportation implementation updates. I think that those are, while it's rolling out, really, really important for us to be looped into. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I would like to add on, if we can look into adding the bylaws, to discussing the bylaws. We have a potential member in the audience. One of them is to attend a meeting. So I think that's great in talking with staff about our bylaws. It's a almost 6 to 9 month process because we only meet every other month to get someone on to the PCC. And as we've heard from 3, now 4 organizations that are always looking for members, I'd like to review our bylaws and review that process. If that's something that I'd like to see on the next agenda that we can start talking about, that would be great. Thank you. Anything else? If anything comes to mind in between, you can always email me or staff and we can add that to the agenda, please. All right. Yes. Member
Sorry,
Toth.
one more thing. Although it's really lovely to see everybody in human form, it's not the most feasible way to have meetings and be inclusive of people who don't have access to accessible transportation. On that note, we're still attempting with Disability Rights California and a number of other organizations to get meetings to where we can participate virtually as an accommodation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And the status of that right now is there's an advocacy effort to ask Rob Bonta to have an opinion that it is an accessibility issue with the Americans with Disabilities Act for local Brown Act governed bodies to allow people with disabilities to attend virtually as an ADA accommodation. So there's an effort to that end.
That is great to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anything else? We have one more. Terry Ann.
I just wanted to provide an update and my computer just died, but I think it's Assembly Bill 817. We're monitoring that. It's a bill that was with the last legislative session that is now back with this legislative session. And essentially that would allow remote meetings for all advisory committees, which would include the Paratransit Coordinating Council. So we're following that bill very closely and looking at possibly supporting that bill as well. So that would be all advisory committees. And I guess the intent really is to allow citizens to participate more freely in these meetings. So hopefully there's more to come on that.
Thank you, Terry Ann. Thank
You're
you so
welcome.
much. All right. With that then, this concludes our meeting. This meeting is adjourned at 2:13 p.m. Thank you. Thanks. 3:30.